And welcome back to CovertRadio.com. In this segment, I'm John Covert. I'm your host. I want to thank Percy for conducting the interview with Mark Lutz. Mark, it was a wonderful interview. And now I'm going to conduct the interview with Mr. Kobrovsky. Mr. Kobrovsky, I understand, aren't you a constitutional attorney?
I am.
Well, so I concentrated my questions on this.
No, keep rolling.
Oh, thank you very much, Percy.
Very expensive operation.
They're very expensive. Yeah, high tech stuff. I got a question for you. Aren't the children who are born of illegal aliens who come to the United States, in fact, United States citizens?
They are under our Constitution, and that's why I would propose a one-sentence law that say that nobody who enters our country illegally can become a citizen, nor could their children, because what it does, in my opinion, if you have any hope or expectation of amnesty, this encourages the next wave, and I believe under our Constitution, in Section 4, Article 4, Section 4, says that the United States government has a responsibility under the Constitution to protect our states from invasion. And my honest opinion is if we have millions of people who come here illegally, that's an invasion. And if you're not a citizen of the United States under our Constitution, you're not a citizen of the state where you live. And I believe that what is happening in Arizona is they're doing the right thing, and it's constitutionally permitted. And also, I think it shows the disconnect, in my opinion, between elected officials and average people. If you're a career politician, you're looking upon how that affects you, what happens if I make these people legal, how would it affect business. But if you're a person like me, you're saying, well, I resent our country being changed to a bilingual, multicultural country and having to call up the government, having forms in other languages, and having to beg to speak in English.
Yeah,
I respect, as a grandson of immigrants myself, it's what made America, they did the hard work. But if somebody's here illegally, they're breaking the law, and it cheapens citizenship for all of us.
But as a point of law, wouldn't it require a change in the Constitution to actually enact something like that?
Well,
you
yes.
could just pass a federal law. You're actually talking about amending the Constitution.
Well, no, the Congress has, under the Constitution, has the authority to have uniform laws of naturalization, so they could change it by law. I would also do an amendment to make it clear, but I think they have the power under the Constitution that they control what naturalization laws. It's under congressional authority under the Constitution.
Well, as long as we're on the Constitution, let's deal with the subject of the 10th Amendment.
Right.
It's a question I'd like to ask you. The necessary and proper segment of the United States Constitution,
Right.
as well as the promote the general welfare section of the
Right.
preamble, do those particular portions of the Constitution trump the 10th Amendment?
No, it doesn't. The general welfare, I believe, needs to be interpreted as meaning it has to be for the general welfare of the country. I would take the position that the general welfare clause outlaws earmarks that are tagged on to bills that represent specific districts. In other words, if you're going to have something to affect the dredging of ports, it has to be part of a national appropriation that affects our national infrastructure. I believe what you just mentioned makes it illegal under our Constitution to have earmarks tagged on to other bills, because that's not for the general welfare. And in terms of the Constitution, I'd like to add that there's not many people out there who are conservative constitutional attorneys. I saw an article in the Faith and section of the newspaper yesterday by an ACLU lawyer talking about what religion in the First Amendment, and you notice one thing, he never mentioned the words of the First Amendment. The First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law establishing a religion, and that's what it means. There's nothing there to prevent prayer at graduation ceremonies. There's nothing in our Constitution that prevents prayer in school or any other place. That's an interpretation that's been, I believe, wrongfully put on the Constitution. And he wrote 2 pages. It never mentioned the words that are in the Constitution. I think that tells you everything you need to know about where they're coming from on that.
Well, let me ask you this. Supposing you get elected to be part of the freshman class in the next Congress,
Right?
do you think the entire freshman class coming in, and there's bound to be a lot of people coming in who won't be incumbents, apparently, do you think this group of people will have the backbone to stand up to the party leadership? I mean, you've got committee assignments, office spaces. Let's face it. You don't play ball, you could very well wind up in the closet behind the boiler room at the bottom of the Congress.
Well, no, I think that as...
Yeah.
Well, I think,
shower.
I think every candidate out there has been working hard, and what we've seen is incredible anger. Wherever you go, they want to throw the incumbents out. They don't want somebody who's part of a dynasty. And there's incredible anger and concern almost universally among everybody you meet. I think there's going to be a tidal wave of new congressmen, and an American first, a conservative second, and the Republican Party has also been part of the problem in the past, because last time they were in power, they did exactly what the Democrats did. But I think you're going to see a tidal wave of people coming in with a mission, and I think that is going to carry through and really, we hope, change things. But I like to say this is a crucial moment in our history, whether we can change or not, and this will be a true test of that. And there's two congressmen running. One was from West Virginia and one was from Kentucky, who started a freshman coalition caucus, and they've identified, and any one of you can look on their website, and I encourage all the candidates to do it. I think Mark has done that, and all the others. They've identified 50 or more candidates all across the country that they've identified for us who feel like us. I would join that process, and what I would like to add to that is to make sure they all take an oath to obey the Constitution. And our president now, I think, ignores it when in the leadership in the House. When Nancy Pelosi was asked, do you feel that what you've done with health care is constitutional? She said, are you kidding? Which to me means she didn't even understand the question, or didn't understand that it was a possibility, and it should concern every American. Our Attorney General said, Eric Holder said, I think it was this week, when asked, is it constitutional what happened in Arizona? He said, well, it's racist. And he was asked, had you read the bill in Arizona? He said, no. So that tells you what he said was, without looking at it, his predisposition was to look at it, and he never read the bill. And that's a similar moment, just like when Obama addressed what happened in Boston with the policeman and the professor at Harvard. He said it was a racial thing. So without looking at what happened.
Well, let's look that into a little bit deeper then,
Okay.
because I was going to ask you about education.
Okay.
We only have time
We
for
can-
one last question in a
Okay.
second. And so as long as you got onto the Arizona law, let me ask
Right.
you one more question about that. Now, whether or not the law has been read correctly or not,
Right.
by these people, I don't know. I got to tell you the truth, I have not read the law myself. I was too busy getting ready for this thing.
Well, I have
So-
it with me.
Well, I'd like to see it. But here's what I'd like to ask you. As a constitutional lawyer, is it constitutional for a state to charge its law enforcement officials to enforce federal laws?
Yes, all those people that are there illegally are criminals, are there illegally. They're not citizens of the state. You can't be a citizen of Arizona, South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia if you're not a citizen of the United States. So they're there in those states illegally. They're
But my
committing
question
crimes.
specifically, though, is it constitutional for those law agencies to actually enforce those federal laws, or is it only constitutional for the federal government to do that?
Well, I'd like to explain that again.
All right, go ahead.
I feel that what they're doing is constitutional. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, again, says that the United States government has the duty under the Constitution to defend states from invasion. And to me, if you have millions of people here illegally, that's an invasion. And the 10th Amendment says that those things not specifically restricted to the federal government are denied to the states, are reserved for the states. I would take the position that those states have a right to criminalize and take care of those people who are not citizens of the United States because they're not citizens of those states. I think they're doing the right thing. I think they have the constitutional authority to do it because the federal government has abrogated that responsibility, and I don't see anything there that would specifically deny them the right to secure those who are living within their borders.
Well, I hope you noticed I did my homework.
You did?
Because I knew you were coming in, so I
Right.
had a bunch of constitutional questions.
Well, those are good questions, and
Yeah?
I'd like to say that the reason I'd like to abolish the Department of Education, because that's one of those things that sounds great, but if you look at the trajectory since that happened, it nationalized our education system, and they made it part of the welfare system. Our public education should be the pride of every community. When I was on the Charleston County School Board, we would have threats from the education department to dumb down our things, and everything had to be according to, it was all about equality of results instead of equality of opportunity. And I see the same people who have done that are now in our federal government and trying to establish equality of result for what happens for our economy and our individual rights as opposed to equality of opportunity. So it's the same fight. And I see the political correctness and contempt that I saw with school administrators for middle-class values is what I see in the current administration. And that's why I think they need a dose of reality of the Constitution, and I hope to be a part of that effort.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kobrovsky,
Thank
for
you.
joining us on
Thank you very much.
CobraRadio.com.
Thank you very much.